Learn how to actually study before it's too late. Are you tired of studying for hours and still getting average grades? You're not alone, and you're not the problem. The way you study is. In this video, we break down the exact difference between students who spend 30 minutes a day and score in the top 5% and those who study for 4+ hours but still struggle to stay afloat. Whether you're in high school, college, or prepping for a big exam, this video will teach you how to study smarter, not harder, with science-backed techniques like active recall, spaced repetition, and the real learning formula that changed everything for me. By the end, you'll not only rethink your entire study approach, but walk away with a proven system that helped me go from B's and C's to straight A's without burnout. Learn how to actually study before it's too late. This is student A. They study just 33 minutes a day, get 8 hours of sleep, hang out with friends, and still consistently rank in the top 5% of their class. Their secret? They spend most of their study time taking practice tests and teaching concepts to classmates. Now meet student B. They grind for 4 hours every day, sacrifice sleep, barely see friends, and still struggle to maintain a B average. They highlight entire textbooks, reread chapters endlessly, and fill notebooks with aesthetic notes. But the results don't match the effort. So what's the difference? It's not intelligence, it's not dedication, and it's definitely not luck. It's how they study, not how long they study. But before we dive in, take a second. Rate your current study method from 1 to 10. Got a number in your head? Cool. By the end of this video, we'll see if it still deserves that score. I'll also share the exact study plan that helped me go from B's and C's to straight A's, starting with the night that changed everything. The night that woke me up. It was 3 a.m. in my dorm room, middle of junior year. My desk looked like a war zone. Empty coffee cups, highlighters with no ink, half-open textbooks, and pages of color-coded notes scattered everywhere. I'd been cramming for over 12 hours straight for a psychology exam that I was desperate to ace. I wasn't messing around. I highlighted every sentence I thought was important. I reread chapters 2, 3, even 4 times. I rewrote my notes in this aesthetic format because I thought it would help me remember better. And for a while I felt productive, but when I tried to recall the info, nothing stuck. My mind was blank. It was like I'd spent the entire day pouring water into a leaky bucket. No matter how much I filled it, it kept draining out. I walked into the exam the next morning running on fumes and caffeine, and I bombed. Hard. Not just a bad grade, a straight-up failure. And that moment hit me like a freight train. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't lazy. But I had to face the truth. I had no idea how to actually study. Everything I thought was studying, highlighting, rereading, making my notes look pretty, was just busy work. It felt like I was learning, but I wasn't. That night became my wake-up call. It was the first time I realized that more hours doesn't mean more results, not if you're using the wrong methods. And from that point on, I made a promise to myself. I was going to stop doing what looked productive and start learning what actually works. The productivity illusion. Why working hard? Learning more. We've all fallen into the trap. You sit at your desk with good intentions, highlighters in hand, playlist queued up, coffee brewed, you're ready to grind. And for hours you do. You highlight so much the pages start to look like a rainbow exploded. You reread the same sentence 5 times until the words blur together. You organize your notes with fancy headers and pastel markers. You even spend 30 minutes tweaking your focus playlist instead of actually focusing. But deep down, you know the truth. You're busy, not productive. You're active, but not actually learning. And here's the harsh reality nobody tells you. We've been taught to confuse time spent with progress made. The longer we sit at a desk, the more accomplished we feel, even if we're spinning our wheels the entire time. Why? Because school rewards the grind. It teaches us that more hours equal better results, that if you're not exhausted, you didn't try hard enough. But real productivity isn't about how long you study. It's about how effectively you use your brain while you're studying. You can study for 30 minutes with the right techniques and retain more than someone who studies for 3 hours using the wrong ones. So if you've ever felt like, I study so much, but nothing sticks. I spend hours working, but my grades don't reflect it. I look productive, but I don't feel smarter. You're not alone. You're just stuck in the productivity illusion. And escaping it starts with changing how you study, not how long. The real problem? The consumption trap. There's a dangerous myth floating around, and most students believe it. The more you consume, the more you learn. More pages, more videos, more hours staring at a textbook. That has to mean you're making progress, right? That's what we're told in school. Teachers assign 3 chapters to review before the test. They say, make sure to study for at least 3 hours tonight. And when we don't do well, the advice is always the same. Study more. But here's the truth no one tells you. Your brain isn't a sponge. It's not designed to absorb endless information through repetition alone. It's more like a muscle. And just like muscles need time to recover and grow, your brain needs active engagement, challenge, rest, and recall. Reading and watching content feels productive, but without using that knowledge, it goes in one ear and out the other. That's the consumption trap, mistaking passive input for active learning. So while you're flipping pages or watching a 10-hour study with me video on YouTube, your brain might just be checking out. Because real learning doesn't happen when you're just taking in information, it happens when you work with that information. So if your study sessions look like endless reading, watching lectures on 2x speed, highlighting every other sentence, you might be stuck in the consumption trap too. But don't worry. Escaping it is simpler than you think, and it starts by flipping the script on how you study. The formula that changed my life and saved me hours every week. This might be the most important equation no one ever taught you. Real learning equals information times retention rate. Let's break that down. Most students only focus on the first part, information. They cram in more notes, more videos, more lectures. But the second part, how much you actually retain, is where the magic happens. Here's what that looks like in real life. Student A studies for 5 hours straight, but retains only 10% of what they studied. That's 30 minutes of actual learning value and 4.5 hours of wasted energy. Student B studies for just 1 hour, but uses high retention strategies like active recall and practice testing. They retain 50%. That's 30 minutes of solid, meaningful learning in a fifth of the time. Same result, way less effort. This blew my mind when I first realized it, because for years I was student A, grinding for hours, exhausted, and still forgetting everything by test day. I thought I had a motivation problem. I thought maybe I wasn't smart enough. But the truth, I didn't have a time problem. I had a retention problem. Once I learned how to flip that retention rate from 10% to 50%, sometimes even higher, everything changed. Less stress, less burnout, better grades, in less time. This isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter and with strategies that stick. And don't worry, I'll walk you through exactly how I did it. But first, ask yourself, how much of what you study do you actually remember? Because if you're not measuring that, you're not really studying. You're just hoping something sticks. And hope is not a strategy. Sounds crazy, right? But it works. What if I told you, studying less can actually help you get better grades? I know. It sounds like clickbait. Because we've all been fed the same grind set garbage. Study harder. No days off. Sleep is for the weak. If you're not miserable, you're not trying. Yeah, nah, shut up. That mindset doesn't build success, it builds burnout. And burnout doesn't get you straight A's. It gets you anxiety, exhaustion, and a deep hatred for school. Here's the truth nobody tells you. You don't need to study harder. You need to study smarter. Because it's not about how many hours you study. It's about how much you remember after those hours are over. If you're spending 4 hours making Pinterest-worthy notes, but forgetting everything 2 days later, was that time well spent? What if you could study for just 30 to 60 minutes a day and retain more than what you currently get from 3-hour grind sessions? That's not a fantasy. That's science. That's strategy. And once I made this shift, my GPA shot up without sacrificing my sleep or social life. The power of active learning, the study shift that changed everything. When I finally ditched passive studying, everything changed. My grades, upper, my stress levels, down. My study hours, cut in half. Here's the deal. I used to spend hours rereading chapters, highlighting every sentence and rewriting notes in 5 different pastel colors, thinking I was being productive. Spoiler alert, I wasn't learning. I was decorating. None of it stuck. It felt like I was working hard, but the results didn't match the effort. Then I discovered the secret weapon of top students, active learning. I stopped passively reviewing, and I started doing what actually works. Practice questions, not just at the end, but throughout my sessions. Explaining concepts out loud, like I was teaching someone else. Real-world applications, tying abstract info to real situations so my brain cared. Suddenly, my retention jumped from 10% to over 70%. Why? Because passive studying is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. You need to patch the holes first, or the knowledge leaks out. Active recall, spaced repetition, and real engagement, they patch the holes. The result? Half the study time, double the retention, straight A's. So how do you study less and learn more? Studying for hours on end doesn't guarantee better results. The secret to improving your grades while spending less time studying lies in a smarter strategy. Here's the exact formula I use to study less and learn more. It's simple but incredibly effective. 1. Study in short, focused sessions. Study for 30 to 60 minutes at a time and no more. Why? Our brains can't stay focused for hours on end without losing productivity. After about an hour, focus starts to fade and learning becomes inefficient. Short, high-intensity sessions, like a sprint, force your brain to concentrate and give you plenty of time to rest and reset. Tip: use a timer, like the Pomodoro technique, to keep sessions focused and break up study periods. 2. Test yourself. First, before you open your notes or review any materials, test yourself. Try to recall as much information as you can from memory. Why? This helps you identify weak spots in your knowledge. Instead of wasting time reviewing what you already know, You'll focus on areas that need improvement. Tip: write down a few key questions before you start studying to test yourself on, or use flashcards for a quick self-assessment. 3. Target your struggles. Don't waste time on what you already know. Once you know where you're struggling, dive deep into those areas. Focus on the weak spots, not the easy stuff. Tip: break topics down into smaller chunks and tackle one weak area at a time. 4. Use active learning methods. Active learning is way more effective than passive reading or highlighting. Instead of passively rereading notes, engage with the material. Answer practice questions. Use flashcards to reinforce memory. Teach someone else what you've learned. It forces you to understand it deeply. Tip: the act of trying to recall information actively, without peeking at your notes, boosts retention significantly. 5. Connect ideas. Building mental links is crucial for remembering and retrieving information later. Instead of memorizing isolated facts, try to link new information to something you already know. This will help you remember it more easily. Tip: create mind maps or diagrams to visually connect ideas or relate new concepts to real-life situations. 6. Review before bed. You probably know that sleep helps consolidate memories, but did you know reviewing right before bed can make it more effective? Just a quick 10 to 15-minute review session before you hit the hay helps cement what you've learned throughout the day. Tip: read over your notes one last time before bed to give your brain time to absorb everything while you sleep. By following these 6 steps, you'll not only study less but also retain more and perform better. Ready to take control of your study habits? Start implementing these strategies today. Your grades will thank you. Now think back to the number you gave your study habits. Still think it deserves that score? If not, that's a sign. You're ready to level up your learning game. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. According to statistics, 90% of those who watched up to this point are not subscribers. Please subscribe. It costs you nothing, and for me as a newbie, it is useful for promoting the channel. And I am also pleased that I am useful to you with my knowledge expressed in my videos. Thank you. According to statistics, 90% of those who watched up to this point are not subscribers. Please subscribe. It costs you nothing, and for me as a newbie, it is useful for promoting the channel. And I am also pleased that I am useful to you with my knowledge expressed in my videos. Thank you.